Hello, another week, another video. I'm honestly on a roll. Never mind the third year of uni looming over my head because that's starting in 2 weeks. It's honestly 1 week now. Honestly, thank God that's over. Never have I ever had this shitty experience in my life. But that's fine. Instead of worrying about that and how I'm going to write my thesis, I've been quite busy with an internship and I've been watching something. As many of you know, a few days ago, this third season of Sex Education premiered, and it was interesting. Wow, we just have to talk about some things because so much has happened. I've been watching this show, I think, for a long while. I think it was a few weeks before the premiere of season 2. I can't quite remember, but it was around that time. I've just finished watching it, and there are some things I've loved and some things that just didn't quite make sense to me. So that's why we're going to start with positives before we move on to not so nice things, because like Miss Taylor Swift said, we can't have nice things always. So I actually aim for this video to be shorter than the last two, although I love to talk, so we'll see. And also I'm going to call this show SE because I don't want my neighbors to think I'm weird by calling it by the full title 20 times in the next hour. So consider this a fair warning that spoilers will be ahead, because although I'm trying not to touch on so many things, I kind of have to like make point about what I liked and what I didn't. Although also I urge you to watch SE because it's just so much more than the title. It's a show about friendships, relationships, trust. So straight up in the first few seconds of SE, we were welcomed with this wonderful, I think, 3-minute montage. And that's why I love this show, because it just takes crazy stuff to a whole new level and you constantly are surprised with what they come up with. And this show just doesn't hold back, ever, ever. It's definitely a show that should be watched by yourself with a pair of headphones to avoid making things awkward with your family, your friends, your roommates, whoever you live with. But let's get back on track. I think the first two seasons were different compared to the third one, because in the first season you just kind of were getting used to this crazy idea of teenagers basically giving out sex education advice for money. Which, wow, it was a crazy concept. Season 1 was mainly for you to get used to the characters, the action, the craziness, and then when season 2 rolled around, we kind of got used to all of this, so they like took it to a whole another level with their rendition of Shakespeare's Romeo and Juliet, but make it crazy and dirty and grand at the same time. I think this finale was like the best out of all of these seasons. And season 3 kind of started like that also. We had the hangout sessions and later the relationship between Otis and Ruby, which I think was the best surprise out of all of this. Which, even if you remember how they hooked up in season 2, at the end of season 2, you were also kind of surprised how well they worked together. And for me, they had everything a relationship should have. They had a connection, for the most part they had an understanding with each other, and they had banter. They pushed each other out of their shelves. Awkward Otis needed Ruby to become more confident, less annoying, and more sure of himself in a great way. And Ruby needed Otis to bring out her trusting side, nicer side, and be more open to her friends, and even become the main character of like the finale when they took down Hope. So yeah, even if I shipped Otis and Maeve so much during the first two seasons, Otis and Ruby honestly surprised me so much that I kind of wish they would still be together. And the relationship that they like set up with Maeve after that felt kind of meh and rushed, because they kind of were trying to fill this space before Maeve leaves for USA. And this relationship was also funny at the same time and brought out so much comedy. And I think this relationship was also a lot more realistic than Otis and Maeve. So yeah, a big plus for Otis and Ruby for this season. So next up is actually the character of Adam, because while Adam stayed true to himself with his like kind of goofy actions and quirks and stuff, he kind of developed a lot, and I mean a lot. And I think it kind of felt natural for him to change so much during season 2, and now in season 3 we see the effects it had on him. And I think in season 3 we'll see just how much he improved, and also how much work he still has to do to be better and to be more like himself. And that's not excusing what he's done, but I think everybody to some extent deserves a chance to get better. And I think what he's done in season 3 just kind of shows how much he's trying to better himself, and honestly that was just so nice to see. Honestly, the character of Adam being one of my favorite characters during this season seems kind of shocking after the first 2 seasons, but I think it's well deserved. Adam improved so much, and by any means it didn't feel like too fast paced. It felt natural. So I think like big props to the writers for writing a good character improvement, because honestly I think some shows do this the wrong way, and they make the character change basically overnight, and you feel like there's an actor that just like switches roles in the middle of a season and starts playing someone completely different. And character development for Adam wasn't linear. He had his setbacks, and he kind of messed up a few things here and there, but he's constantly trying to make up for them, and I think that's what makes it. I think Adam changed so much. He started being more open. He started trying in school. He wasn't afraid to ask for help. He even made friends with Rahim, which was so surprising. I didn't think they would work well together, but they did, and honestly, I'm here for it. I love it. And he honestly had one of the better scenes in this season, so I'm here for it. I really, really would love to see more of it in season 4. And lastly, we have Amy, which my chaotic queen. I love Amy. The most unhinged woman, but also she has the biggest heart, I think, out of all of them. Amy really, really changes for better with each episode, and that even started back in season 1. She, I think, developed so much as a character, even after, especially after season 2 and what happened to her back then. She is constantly showing how strong she is. She's not afraid to show off her like vulnerable side, and she's not afraid to ask for help, and she isn't afraid to take the help that she can get, and she shows like her true colors with each episode. Even her flaw, which is a failure to admit that she isn't ready for a relationship, and she's just afraid to break up with Steve because she honestly still loves him, but she doesn't want to like hurt him, but she can't carry on like this, makes her look like a human with real emotions, and not just the quirky Amy, the chaotic Amy, the unhinged woman like she is perceived as most of the time. And the way she set Maeve straight during their fight, I love it so much. Chef's kiss. Amy makes this show so much better because she's not only the comedic relief that we love her for, but she also brings so much to the table that it just deserves another video in itself. So things I didn't like, because there's a few of them. For a second, I'm not going to like focus on individual characters, but you'll see why. Not only the previous 2 season finales were crazy, and especially in season 2, there was so much build up till that point that you kind of were ready and you were excited for it to end, not like in some cases where the show just like drags on so much. By the point when the finale rolls around, you kind of are so done with the show that you just wanted to end. And then it wasn't that case with how SE did their finales. You kind of waited for that moment, and in this season I think it like changed a little, and you'll see why. This season, I didn't really like the build-up they did to the open day in Mordale in episode 7, um, because you just didn't feel like much happened when it obviously did. So much has happened to that point, but it kind of felt like it didn't when it obviously did, because the new head teacher Hope changed up so many things on day-to-day basis, and then the trip to Paris happened. Because I feel like this was the main event of the season, and it wasn't even in the last episode. The open day in Mordale in episode 7 kind of felt like it was the finale when it wasn't. The moment when they took down Hope kind of felt like a finale, because that was what happened the previous 2 seasons, with Mr. Grove being basically dethroned 2 times in a row. And the finale in season 3 really felt like it had something missing. So maybe just switching episode 7 and episode 8 in places would make it feel like it had that. I know essentially what happened in episode 7 with the open day in Mordell literally set Jean into labor, but I think there's just so many better ways to like write it around, and then it would make so much more sense. The switch would bring back the dynamic that the show had with its finales, because it felt like in episode 8 things just felt like it slowed down so much compared to episode 7, and I think the character of Hope was just way too cruel, and you could write it a lot better when you look at what happens in schools on day-to-day basis. So now we got through that. It's time for the character that literally inspired this video. And unfortunately, it's Eric. And this season honestly also started like this. He and Adam got on really well. They were cute together. They like made a relationship out of like all the shit that they've been through. And things honestly were good between them. It didn't feel like they were going to break up anytime soon. It took only one trip to his homeland for Eric to change his own perspective so much. Because now for Eric, a relationship with Adam wasn't enough, because he wanted to be with a person that was just as open as he was. And that's literally hilarious for me, because for a guy that literally dated Raheem, who's the most open person in terms of his own sexuality, for him to cheat on Raheem for Adam, who he kind of knew how much he went through to like be more open with the way he is. Then all of a sudden, after a few months, deciding that it's not enough, Adam is not comfortable 100%, even though he made some really big steps as of late, and he even said to Eric that he loves him. And it honestly felt like it was just so sudden, because they really didn't have many fights. I think they had their like casual fights that couple have on a day-to-day basis, especially when one of the sides isn't really 100% ready to be all the way open, and he's just taking his own steps little by little, and Eric obviously knew that, because he's been there every step of the way. And then all of a sudden Eric decides that it's just not for him. Then what is for him? Make it make sense. Like, he claims he knows how hard the process of coming out really is, but when Adam struggles with some steps, he isn't so considerate all of a sudden. Relationships are not so fast-paced. It takes a lot of trust and communication between both sides to work things through, and Adam honestly tried so much. He even like asked Raheem to help him write poems, because he knows Eric liked poems, and Eric just didn't like try in return, this season especially. I think Eric never really tried. Relationship with Adam was just like so exciting that it blinded him, and when the reality set in, it wasn't enough then. I honestly understand if things weren't good between them for a while, but it really didn't seem like it. I think they were great. and they had their ups and downs, but I think every couple has them. So that's what like was the most surprising and a little disappointing even. Nothing is sunshines and rainbows 100% of the time, and I really think Eric expects it to be like that. I think Eric expects it to be crazy all of the time. It irked me way too much the way they handled it. So yeah, that would be it. Overall, this season was great, all things considered. It also touched on many important themes, and I think it was more serious in some places, but I think that's what made it better. And for sure, I'll rewatch it in the next few weeks because it's my comfort show, and I come back to it every few weeks. But did you enjoy season 3? What was the best part in your opinion, or maybe what was like the best character out of all of them in season 3? I think many people have different opinions, and it's really nice to get to know other POVs, so please leave them in the comments. As always, I would be so happy if you subscribed or even give this video a like, maybe both, or even like left a stupid comment. It just makes my day, and it kind of shows me what like to focus on next. All of my socials are in the description below, and I will see you very soon. Bye bye.